Okay, this is a neat story about somebody who ended up getting killed by a meteorite. Don't worry, it wasn't real recent. It was a couple hundred years ago. But this map that you see right here is known as the bolide event map, and it's dated between 1994 and 2013, so roughly 10 years, or nine and a half ish years. And each spot on here is a meteor or meteor-like object coming into our atmosphere and causing a flashing event, to where it's real bright light, and whenever it comes through. And what a lot of people don't realize is that whenever that happens, even though the burn up quits, or whenever it burns up, it goes out like a firework, some pieces still end up hitting the land. And so the yellow ones, I believe, are indicating places that supposedly something had hit. And we know about the one that happened in Russia and left this streak across the sky that we're hopefully somewhat familiar with. It happened not too long ago. And that's not that big of a spot there, for there was bigger ones like Tunguska that laid down a whole forest and caused a whole lot more damage. And luckily it was in an area that there weren't any people really living. But if we look at something like that, Tunguska was the bigger dot on the right, the little one was the one that just happened in Russia, and you can compare these to bigger sites, but you can imagine what would happen if something larger was to hit the Earth, and how it would cause extreme shock waves to come off of it. It just takes something roughly twice the size of that other one. Some may even know about the famous meteorite called Salikuga, and it's basically this lady ended up getting hit by a meteorite that traveled through her house and smacked her on the hip here, basically, and traveling at great speeds. Now, there's a few cases known about this, and one famous case of a guy, it went through his roof and back out his wall. Another case of a guy had one where it hit the back of his car, supposedly set off an alarm, comes out, and then there was like a brick piece of meteorite, but metal apparently, that it hit his car, and people that were looking at it or whatever said you couldn't have thrown the thing fast enough in any way to cause a dent like this. Like, this thing came with such speed that it would have taken, like, I don't know, Mythbusters air cannon or something like that to pull it off. But there's been a few events like this, and a couple of stories that come out of other situations that have been told in the news. One of which is kind of interesting. But this thing that you're looking at here is what they think that it came from. I forget what they name it. It's not Tycho, but it's something that has a T with its name. Anyhow, this meteorite here, which is a couple of kilometers across, and it actually goes past Earth every 1.6 years and wobbles right around us, apparently getting inside of the area of the moon whenever it does so. And it's apparently been hit by a few things, because it's got some dents off into it, but they say that a large little chunk of this fell off, and that was what caused the event that we're talking about here. And one can only worry that if it's tossing off a chunk and just that easily drops one off, how far is it away from trying to run into us? And at 1.6 years, it keeps rolling back around to us too. A lot of people don't know it. There's a story recently about a kid in Kenya where they saw an airburst, basically a streak in the sky, and then a big boom. And then about the time they quit talking about it and walked off, the kid got hit by a little pellet. But it's a little pellet about the size of your pinky thing or whatever here, that he hit the guy off of it. And they really couldn't verify it. By the time they got somebody out there, he didn't even have a sore or something from it. But you can see that explosion that's there. But here is just a sample map of basically everywhere that we have found a meteorite. And people have compiled this up Just take that into thought, all those dots that you saw there, and red dots are of bigger size. But how many meteorites have been found and plotted across the planet here so far? And this has been a plotting that's only been over the last 100 years or so, that they've been plotting all the ones that are found, meteorite evidence, and where they're at, and so on like that. If you ever watched Meteorite Hunters and things, he's well aware of these little fields, mainly in the States, and he goes to places around there, tries to find one, and quite often, upfield from one, you're going to find it. You have to figure out which way they may have came from, but then upfield, you might find ones. And of course, if they're metal, you'll go with metal detectors and things like that. But look at the amount of these there are all across here. And of course, there's some open area there, but very few people live there. And back to the story about somebody dying. This was in the Ottoman Empire in 1888, and it was hard to get it knowledge of it, but the thing got put out by the government and stuff, so they're going with this idea, and so it's documented. And they even go into the fact that many people don't, have reported being killed by meteorites and but here it was, and it was a script that was written in ancient Ottoman Turkish that had to be transposed into a modern form and then to English before they even understood what it contained in it. But what it contained was pretty unique. For what it tells you is of this airburst that came streaking through the sky, and then it blew up. And whenever it blew up, basically it was right over here, just past the Tigris and Euphrates area, in one of the Stan type areas. Turkestan? No. Turkmenistan? Anyhow, whenever it blew up, this is going to go ahead and hit the planet, but whenever it blew up, it ended up shattering into pieces in the atmosphere. And after the shock wave sounded off, they say that it started raining pebbles and rocks from the sky, like a fire and brimstone story, for almost 10 minutes. Basically, the way it describes it is raining pellets all over this place. Well, in the process of raining down these chunks, it ended up hitting someone apparently in the back and paralyzing them and killing another person. And it's documented of having happened. And they even found meteorites around the little village and stuff. And it talks about this in the little document, which is kind of neat. But something else that's kind of neat, or let me throw another worrisome at you here. So where it ends up coming in from and striking at, and this place, well, you think it's out in the middle of nowhere, but there's nearly 1 million people that live in that little valley where this happened only a couple of 100 years ago now. And so it caused a hell of a lot more damage nowadays with all these pieces raining down and all the buildings that are in there. And it was apparently just a fragment of this comet, or of this meteorite, if you will. You can see this big dent that's been cut out of it right here, like something popped on it, but you can see the little ones too. Anyhow, it's just ended up being just a fragment off of that caused this effect, they think. And that's scary and enticing at the same time to have this knowledge. But I keep trying to say that I'm not fear-mongering whenever I do something like this, and I tell you, there you can really see that crater. And I'm not trying to fear-monger you, but I am in some way, and I want to get something done for people to check this out for, hey, it may not happen in my lifetime, maybe one of my kids or grandparents, I mean, who knows? But I don't want it to happen, and I sure don't want to be sitting here with my thumb up my ass, or someone still on this planet after I'm gone that is still and watches something like this happen. We've had literally movies about taking and stopping things like this from happening. And you know that should put the scare enough in people. And you see little streaking stars and things like that sometimes, and you don't think that much about it. And we run through the torrid meteor shower. There's one up there in the corner, and we don't think about much about what goes through that. But man, we run through a rough patch of that stuff or something else, and something dramatic can happen. And just a couple of rocks bumping out there in the Oort cloud can send something in that we're very unaware of. And whenever it does so, I'd like to mention that every single one of these we were totally unaware of. And it's not like, well, if it was just a little bit bigger, we would have known it. No, it's if it was a lot bigger, we'd know it now. And we didn't have any idea this stuff was flying in. Muamua and that one that came by not too long ago that's all stretched out looking weird, and they were freaking out on it because it was giving the signature to them and everything, because it was flipping basically. We didn't catch that until it went past us and it was on the way back out, and everybody's like, well, what the hell was that? And I just think, I'm going to say it 10 more times, I think whatever we're doing now, we got to put double into it and start with an idea of, if one was coming right now, what would we do? And let's start doing that. So in case one does come, we'll have things in place. So if somebody, oh my God, here comes one, we were like, fantastic, got it ready, let's take a shot at it. Maybe even do some type of fake idea of trying to see if it worked good or not. I'm not saying to shoot off nukes in space or anything freaky like that, people. I'm saying do something. Of course, it might involve nukes in space at a last moment. You may have this idea of pushing it around, but if you didn't know it was coming, you may have to do nukes back to back or something right in this one area so it blows in pieces and more and tries to deflect it away. And maybe we get a meteor shower that makes a bunch of spots like this, but less than taking out half of humanity, more or somewhat, or even a good portion. It would do a lot less, but we should do something. It's really only the point that I'm getting at. And I sure don't want that we know all of these strike marks and the one that was in that other map and everything that happens like this, and then to turn around and go, yeah, well, we've got people on it. And like, well, what are we talking about here? Well, not much. In fact, the people that are on it keep going, hey, we had one go by us again. Well, listen, we don't need go by us again. We need coming at you. Whether we put some type of satellite radar in space pointing out towards space in different directions to see if it's coming, and not just sideways, but up to see if something's coming and stuff like this. Deep field radar situations to go, caught something, you know, and stuff, and have things hooked up with it so you know what's going on, and getting trajectories, and try to have some modicum of an idea what's going on. Maybe even set up little things where you go out there and hook up to it with a little plasma engine on it, and you shoot it right into the sun. And you can forget about 2214-812 or whatever its name is and continue on. Anyhow, guys, like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. I know some of this is getting monotonous about ice age destruction and meteors and things, but it's something that doesn't get talked about enough, apparently. Peace.